awkwardly walk up. Okay. So you want to start moving down the line. And there's a mic there if you want to grab one. Love this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, great. Hi everyone. Wow, it's not going to be great. So we're going to make a start. I'm not sure what that sound is.
I think someone put on the stage.
I'm just nervous.
What was it?
You've got a microphone, maybe grab that mic off just so you're ready to go. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Before we go any further, I also just want to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on tonight, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So, very excited. We have a badass panel up here tonight. You're in for a treat. So we're really excited to be teaming up with Out for Australia. So you heard a little bit about Out for Australia. Firstly, I just want to give a shout out to Hares and Hyenas. Thank you for having us tonight. If you haven't been here, get back here ASAP. It is an institution in our community. Hares and Hyenas has been around for almost 3 decades now, through a couple of different locations. So thank you. Out for Australia is also really worth checking out. Out for Australia is nationwide. It's run by volunteers, which is pretty incredible because they do a lot of work. Shout out to Lacey and Arjun and Francis who helped set tonight up. And Out for Australia is all about pairing up LGBTIQA+ professionals and students with mentors, which I'm sure for many of us within the queer community understand how important mentors and role models are, so it's really valuable work. And before we get to the speakers tonight, I also just want to tell you a quick little bit about Queertown. So Grace down the front here, who is filming, and myself, Archie, are the co-founders of Queertown, and we're a new queer tech startup, and we are building an online platform packed full of LGBTIQA+ digital content, so videos and films, podcasts, writing and artwork, because essentially we just saw a huge gap in queer media in Australia. One, there was barely any of it, and two, what was there was mostly US based, mostly really negative. A lot of it's actually pitched to non-queer people to educate them about what queers are. And it's kind of boring, so we were like, where's the fun stuff that we actually want to see? So we're building a tech platform which is launching in February. So check us out at queertown.com.au or across socials. But we are here tonight because we have some beautiful local LGBTIQA+ creatives in the house. And in a moment, I'm going to ask each of our creatives to introduce themselves. So maybe you can do so by sharing your name. You're welcome to share your pronouns if you'd like, and tell us a little bit about your experience in the creative industry, whatever that might look like. And if you remember, it'd be cool to hear who like a role model is for you, perhaps, whether it's now or growing up. Yeah, do you want to kick us off, Jessie? Is that cool?
Should I stand?
I would stay seated.
Oh,
yeah.
cool. Hey everyone, my name's Jessie DaCosta, but yeah, I just use she, her pronouns, and I guess I consider myself to be like a visual artist, specifically illustration and like fine art. I work with like traditional mediums like, you know, pencil and yeah, just ink as well. And yeah, I think I try to just express my experiences and my kind of like intersecting identities through my artwork, but it's not something that I kind of consciously do. It just kind of happens. And yeah, so I think a role model for me, well, currently is Frank Ocean, just because I think he's an amazing multifaceted artist as well as being a musician, but I think he inspires me a lot, yeah, just because of the kind of, I don't know, just the nature of his work and like the sort of person he is. So yeah, that's me.
Cool, thanks Jessie.
Hi, I'm Stone, Motherless Cold. I'm she, they pronouns in drag, they, them, out of drag. And I've been a drag artist for 2 years. And the role model currently would be Oriel Andrews, who I've recently discovered is a R&B country singer. And she was the first Aboriginal woman that was on TV, and also the second Aboriginal woman who released an album in Australia. So watch out for like me referencing that in like later performances.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kiki Divine from the House of Divine. My pronouns are literally anything, he, she, it, whatever you want, I don't mind. My role models are, there's a lot of them. To name a few, it's Sanaya, Leo the Amazon, the Mizrahi, so all different people from different houses over in New York. All the legends really inspire me, especially like growing up, like learning from them and just seeing them be free really just inspired me to express myself in so many different ways. But I'm a performance artist, and I've mainly focused on voguing and other categories in ballroom to express my creativity. Yeah.
Thanks, Kiki.
Levels back.
Go.
Hi, I'm Matto Lucas. I'm a visual artist, photographer, and producer, curator. My pronouns are he, him, but also I'm not hung up on it, so I don't care. And my inspiration or influences,
Role models.
role model, probably during my formative years of becoming a creative would have been my mentor, Michelle Mancio, who is an academic artist based in Melbourne, but also global. But kind of at the moment, it would be Franco B, who's a European performance artist.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. As you can see, we've got like a really exciting mix of different personal and professional experience tonight. So I'm going to dive straight into some questions, and anyone can choose to answer, and we'll just kind of go with the flow. And if you don't want to answer, that is totally fine. But let's not fuck around. Let's just go for the hard stuff straight up. I'm interested around being a member of the LGBTIQA+ community and whether you feel that directly impacts or influences your creative practice, or vice versa, or whether it's actually it doesn't. Does anyone want to keep us off? Be brave.
I would say initially, I was very focused on my queer identity, especially during my undergrad and studying. My artwork was primarily focused on the queer identity, but that has since kind of expanded and extrapolated. And now all that interest in the body, which was primarily about sexuality, is now about the body in terms of a worker's body or autonomy in kind of a capitalist system.
And what do you think sort of brought about that change or that transition for you?
Probably age, which is just a bit of a boring answer, but kind of as you get older and you work through those kind of problems or those questions, you become a little bit more at ease with them, even if you don't find answers. And then you start looking kind of for other questions. It starts to be a bit more existential, I guess.
Totally. So it's maybe not the main focus forever, kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
What else for the other members of the panel?
As a drag artist, drag is like inherently a queer art form, so you know it is all together interwoven. Drag has influenced my queerness by like letting me celebrate myself and my femininity, which has been the whole point of why I started drag, so that I can learn and explore who, like, the feminine side of myself that I had to so like push down for like 18 years of my life. So that's that. And then like queerness informed my drag by like doing this, I guess. I don't know. It's all together. Drag, queerness, everything's also drag, you know. Everything, yeah.
For me, I think I was thinking about this morning, and like it's kind of a delicate balance between like my queer identity sort of not having a direct impact on my work and it being sort of the core of my work at the same time, because I think I don't try and like overtly make my work like an overt statement, if that makes sense, but I think because my identity or my queer identity like informs who I am. It's part of like the fabric of who I am as a human being. Therefore, it becomes a part of my art, if that makes sense. So it's always been a kind of balance between not like obsessing over like labels and identity and that kind of thing, but also it just sort of naturally being kind of sinking into the, you know, like into the kind of like core of the work, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Are you able to tell us a little bit more about your practice when it comes to creativity and maybe what your process is, or like kind of how do you tackle it?
Is that directed at like everyone?
I would like to hear from you.
Oh, nice. I think for me, I honestly, it's a very like organic process. I don't have like a prescribed thing. Like even the outlet for me expressing myself, it tends to change. So I say visual art because that's kind of the main thing, but I sometimes incorporate writing, or I'm very into animation and even speaking like this. So I think for me, the process kind of, it follows on from like whatever I'm thinking about, if that makes sense, like whatever kind of challenges I interact with, which sometimes are based in like my identity and other times they're not. But I think I think identity plays a huge role in my work, because that's the most kind of, or it's something that I've had to sort of confront and really like engage with within myself. So I think that does naturally slip into my work a lot. Yeah.
Cool.
Does that answer your question?
It does. And let's keep working back down the line. Stone, can you tell us a little bit about how you approach your creative practice? And maybe tell us a little bit about what your experience has been like entering the performance art realm, or the drag realm, however you like to refer to it.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so what's your experience been like entering performance art? And how do you approach your creativity?
I forgot already.
That's okay.
One question at a time.
So tell us a bit about like starting performance art. What was that like for you? When did it start?
Like 2 years ago.
And why?
When I was, well, like 2 years ago when somebody said that I should get into drag because I was doing makeup and I was going out to like Yaya's when it was like lit at the time. And someone was like, probably maybe you were one of the many people that was like, you should like actually do it, and then also like do it. So then I went to Baby Drag and did it, and I was like, wow, this is very white. So that's about the original experience, yeah.
So would you say that for you, that was like a personal decision or more of like a political decision?
I think I guess it was like a natural progression from what I was doing, like just slowly going from like putting eyeliner to places, like getting more and more, and then eventually covering my brows, and I guess it was like gonna get there, but someone was just like, here's where you can do it, instead of just like getting like really blasted and like blind at a club and stuff, and falling downstairs and stuff. So maybe actually put that energy somewhere. Yeah.
That's cool, and it's cool to hear that you had a space that you could actually start to explore that a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool.
A space.
What about you, Kiki? What's your experience been like approaching your creativity?
Well, it started when I was like 16. I was pretty young. I joined this crew that was full of like trans women of color and a lot of gay people of color. And I was like, I didn't even know who I was. I was 16. I was like, what the fuck am I? I went to that crew and they taught me everything. I was really like thrown into the deep end, knowing like they taught me everything about being queer and identities and all that. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And that's when I found myself and found voguing. And voguing really opened up so much for me. Especially learning about the culture and the people that were in it and the people that pioneered the scene. So many trans women of color, especially Black and Latino, Latin trans women of color, really inspired me to be who I am now, and that's still ongoing. They're still, even though some of them have passed, they're still motivating me to this day to keep doing what I'm doing and to create spaces like balls where queer people can just be themselves and express themselves. So, yeah.
And for anyone who doesn't fully understand, Kiki's already doing this. Kiki's the mother of the House of Divine. If you're not following them on Instagram, hurry the fuck up. And they are incredible.
Find me outside.
And they recently hosted the housewarming ball, which is one of, if not the first ball that's taken place here in Melbourne. And it was really incredible. So for those of you who went, you will understand. If you haven't gone yet, there should be another one in summer. We hope, we pray. So get behind House of Divine and support them.
Fund us.
Yes. And what about you, Matto? Can you tell us about what your experience has been like approaching creativity? And I know you kind of grew up in the country. I don't know if that played a part in it. Sorry, personal joke. Go on.
No, yeah.
How's it like seeing people?
Yeah. the big smoke, man. No, we were kind of joking backstage that I was like, a question about me from the country. It's like, I've been in Melbourne for 14 years. So.
Wait, you grew up there?
Yeah, and I got the fuck out of there as quickly as possible.
Fair enough.
They're like a tiny little story quickly. There was no words when I was growing up, even though it wasn't that long, I'm not that old, but there were no words in Bendigo at the time for gayness or queerness or homosexuality or anything. And so for a very, very long time as a child, I totally thought I was made in a lab, or like I was an alien that had landed here and taken the form of a human. I was like, oh no, humans like the other gender, but I fucked up, like something's gone wrong. So discovering kind of Queer as Folk late at night on TV, watching it on like one volume, you know, and going, holy shit, like this is real, this is people, and this is before the internet. So, my family at least didn't have it, it was only in school, there was that one computer in the closet. So kind of getting out of Bendigo and just in the closet.
That got real dark.
Freudian. Yeah, getting out of there was almost just an act of survival in a sense, because I don't think I was my autonomous self growing up at all. And even kind of my 20s were, I don't feel like I fully became realized until the end of my 20s and the start of my 30s. That's when I feel like I am fully understanding myself as a queer person, where I sit as a queer person. But yeah, even 20s was just a journey. But I think that might be because I didn't have the internet, or I was from a space that didn't allow any kind of expression from men, you know, at all, like feelings at all. Like I was that weird emotional kid in art class, like drawing little stick figures hanging themselves, like dark shit. And that's just goth and emo, you know, from the country. It's not cute. What's the question?
I'm not even worried about the question. It was just to kind of find out a little bit about how you approach your creative practice, but it's nice to hear a little bit about your history. What about today? You've made it at least out of the country. Congratulations. But today, when you're approaching your creative practice, which I know is really diverse, what's kind of your approach? Or
so just really quickly, sorry, I'm taking up so much time. My practice is split into a few different kind of shards. So there's my photography practice, which is primarily commercial based, and that's to pay rent and survive, but it's still a creative output. There's my Melbourne Art Review, which is a labour of love, which is rarely funded, but contributes back to the artistic society. My podcast, which is hopefully grant-based soon. And then my visual art practice, which is not very commercial in Australia. It's performance and video and experimental media. So there's not really a commercial market here for that to sell. I've sold prints and I've sold weird works in the past. And I'm lucky enough to be the recipient of a few grants. But when I'm approaching that practice, it's about what I want to explore, what questions I want to interrogate. And they've moved a little bit beyond body value systems and queer men and into capitalist structure and systems that control us and divide us.
Cool. Okay, well, starting to talk a bit more about commercialization and whatnot. The reality is tonight we're here to talk about creative careers, and for a lot of creatives, that's one of the tough questions. It's can I get paid for this? Can I live off this? Is this a career? So it'd be nice to hear from the panel what are your thoughts on perhaps within your creative industry? Is it possible to have a paid career in your industry?
Start for me?
Yeah, please.
I think like as creatives, like we can all relate to the kind of there's sort of a general people like not really taking our work seriously or whatever our creative pursuits are. But I found that at least for illustration, it is possible to sort of you kind of have to be kind of proactive in finding a space that there's demand for your work and stuff like that, which isn't always easy. But being in the kind of center, being in a very metropolitan, very kind of creative city, it's doable. And I think we've got the power now to also create our own platforms. So you don't have to always wait for that like gatekeeping thing. You can start, like for me, I think my biggest realization is that you can start like on your own terms and sort of grow that. But you're not like dependent on entering an industry straight away. But I think it varies on whatever your practice is. But for illustration, I think it's achievable. I think it's a good idea to, if you can, diversify your creative craft. So like I do illustration, but I kind of alternate between that and like fine art or sometimes I don't know. Yeah, it might be more commission-based work, or it might be more kind of, just self-expression or whatever, and finding people that want to buy that. But yeah, I think it's just about being diverse in your approach to creativity, and also I don't think you should wait for any opportunities. I think we take full advantage of the fact that we can actually create our own platforms, and whether it's even just an Instagram if you can't afford to build a website yet or whatever. I've been doing it since I was 15, and from there kind of just slowly building an audience and sort of creating your own space if there isn't one already there for you. Yeah, that's probably what I'd say.
Cool. And what about for you, Stone? A lot of your performance art takes place in the drag scene, and as a lot of us know, drag has really blown up, particularly in the mainstream, with things like RuPaul's Drag Race and whatnot. Do you think because of that sort of mainstreaming of drag, you're more likely or less likely to be able to have a career in drag?
I guess it depends on who you are. You're in the cities like Melbourne, I think there's definitely a rare chance for you to be able to be a drag artist full time. But then I think a lot of the drag artists I know that have gigs 5 nights a week are doing, and a lot more than that. They still have to do a daytime job. They still have to, get that rent money. So it depends on how we're defining career as well. If it's your full-time job, that's paying your rent and paying your spare money as well. No?
Yeah, well, totally. For you, is your goal to be able to live full-time through your creative practice?
Yeah, for sure. But I guess I also produce and program stuff as well. So, but I do that through drag and through Stone Motherless Cold. So that's, I guess, those are that's the rent money. So I'll perform in a space that I have to make a whole hour show, and I'll pay for 2 months rent, and I'm yeah, lit. But in between I can do the fun, nice, quirky gigs, $50, $75. I'm it's cool, it's fun. But then it's a weird juxtaposition, because then I get to work in these spots as well that pay a lot more money. So I guess I'm quite privileged that I get to have those positions and those spots. Because I know a lot of drag artists and a lot of other queer performers as well that are just still riding on those $50 gigs, and I'm just doing it because I love it.
Yeah.
Which I do.
Cool. Well, it sounds like you're both already talking about diversifying your practice. So you may do drag, but you're saying you can also do programming and whatnot, looking for opportunities. What about you, Kiki? Tell us about the ball scene. Can you have a full-time career in the ball scene? Tell us there's hope.
I wouldn't say you can, because for me, ballroom is a culture that you can't just make money of. It's not a business, it's not an industry, it's culture, it's lifestyle. And it's something I really want to like push with everyone as well. Like, you can dance and make money from winning, but you can't make it your career because this is not our culture. Even for me, like, this is not my culture. I did not build this myself. So I think it's really important to respect that and give that to the people who created it in New York. But if you want to go into like the dancing scene in general, there is a lot of opportunities for you to make money in, but it involves a lot of work and a lot of training. Yeah, that's why I believe in this, because we're not a circus act. We don't just like go to every place to perform and get our coins, and a lot of places as well don't provide enough money for us because there's so much involved in dancing, finding music, or even creating music, spending so much time training yourself, going to classes, paying for classes. That's so much money already, and then there's places that pay you $100 to perform for 30 minutes, and you're like, what? No, like I spent so much time to create myself, and that's what you offer. So I feel like you can't really make money off, I guess, ballroom. It's more of like an outlet for you to express yourself, not really a source of income.
Cool, thank you. And Matto, what does like a full-time career in creativity look like to you?
It's really taken me quite a long time to get to a point where I'm just doing creative jobs, and I feel very privileged and lucky to be able to do that. It's a combination of passion. You have to want to fucking do it and love it and absolutely love it. But at the same time, we're moving into this really weird system now where we're monetizing each of our hobbies. And it's getting really kind of dark and weird that everything we love to do has to be monetized under this capitalist structure. So I would say that if that's what you want to do, like drag at full time, that's totally fine. But if you don't want to do that, that's also totally fine. If you want to do visual art on the side and be in group shows or do illustration as a side thing, that's fine. Don't burn yourself out and hate the practice. Do your day job in retail or work at KFC or whatever. That's not disrespectful. That's what's going to pay rent, and then you can still keep your passion. So I think there's a conversation there about not monetizing all of your fucking hobbies because you'll end up hating your life.
Thank you.
Can I say something about that?
Of course.
Actually, in terms of like under the capitalist system that we're under, yeah, that's really shitty that we're under. But if we're like, it'd be fun to maybe change it and work it towards having a more community-based system. So yes, we're maybe monetizing our hobbies and our interests, but if we make it into a more community-based system where it's an exchange, where it's like, I need you to make my logo. What can I give you?
Yes.
Da da da. But you know, obviously we're under this system that is hard to do that.
Yeah.
But things to think about.
Yeah, also I was going to say something like,
Please.
it'd be really, really amazing for us to get more grants and I guess more support from the community, because art takes so much time and a lot of emotional effort. So we need our time for ourselves as well, and to have a career in like the art scene, you need a lot of money as well to survive, not just to like keep yourself going, but just to survive. We need that time for ourselves. So yeah, that could be cool if we were supported, you know, by the community. You
Can
know?
you imagine? Don't be silly. Yeah, totally. Well, my next question was going to be around like what types of supports do you need as creatives to pursue your creative practice? So it sounds like that kind of community-based system. We need some more structural support through grants and whatnot. I'm going to hand over in a moment to the audience for some questions. So start thinking of some, so we don't have to sit in awkward silence. But maybe just like let's finish with like a classic cliche one. But to think like what, for someone who might be in the room tonight who has like a little burning desire of creativity that they haven't necessarily pursued, or they're thinking about it, or they're like, this isn't realistic, what would you say to them? And maybe that was you a few years ago. It's a bit cheesy, but realistically, what would you say to that person who's kind of grappling with that at the moment?
Well, so I think I kind of touched on it a little bit before, but like for me, my biggest thing is like just like start. And I know that seems very kind of abstract and very kind of like intangible kind of advice, but I think that's the one thing that like in just starting, you're already kind of like expressing some kind of agency, which I think will be so important in future, like your future creative career, is this idea that you have control and that you have some kind of, I don't know, something to offer, because if you don't go in with that, as an artist, you likely be exploited by other people. So I think like you, especially being in the West and being in this city, like there's so many ways that you can start, so many avenues you can, like I started doing stop motion and stuff just like on my phone. Like there's apps you can do. It's like not measuring yourself to like someone else that you can perceive as being a lot better. It's not about like how good. I think it's just, I think if you've got that kind of impulse within you to express yourself, that has so many outlets, and you don't need to limit yourself by your skill or by whatever. You can just start. Yeah, I feel like that's quite basic, like just start. But I think like it's really helped me to kind of keep going. And even as I've been doing art for quite a long time, in times of demotivation and where I just have no creative, like, you know, like inspiration or anything, that really helps, like just to create something. Yeah, and sorry, just to finalize that, just like kind of like what Matto touched on, where you can divorce it from its purpose, you can divorce it from, you know, your livelihood or it being something. You can just treat it as just a way of expressing yourself. So, yeah.
Nice, thank you.
I really back that. There's like starting, because there's a lot of there's a lot of drag artists that are like I'm gonna waiting to like get my makeup ready and to get my outfit ready and to like get my dance moves and to get this one performance and there's like 5 minutes correct down to the T, hitting every beat, but they're just like stuck in their rooms for like a whole year, and so that's whole period of time that they're not doing things and expressing themselves and also like locking themselves away in their rooms. So I feel like mentally also like that's going to teach you to keep it locked away and keep it. So yeah, I fact that, you know, just start it. And but my advice or my thing to say would be to find people that you enjoy working with, not people that like might sound really shitty to say, but like you might not even like their art, you might not even think, but like if you really like who they are as a human being, and like really working with them and you make a really good rapport and relationship with them starting off, I feel like that is a really good way to start off doing what you could be doing for a really long time, because you want to be surrounding yourself by people that you can love and support and they can love and support you back.
Thank you.
What was the question?
So, if there's someone in the room today who's like kind of itching to pursue creativity but they don't know how or where to start or if to at all, what might you say to that person?
I feel like it really depends on how you prioritize your happiness. If you feel like you need, I guess, luxury or a car or a house to be happy, then you can go find somewhere else to do it. Like, it doesn't have to be in art, and if you want to keep your artistic route for your own happiness, then there's that as well. Like, for me, art is like, let me start. What are my thoughts? For me, I can always find money. I feel like everyone can always find money somewhere else. It doesn't have to be within your art form, because for me, once you involve money in your art form, it kind of taints it, and then people start using you for it and pay you nothing for all your work. So I like to keep it separate, because art is so pure to me. It's my own expression. I don't want anyone to be touching that. Like, that's hard. Like, if someone just tries to like use you just to have a show to represent, I guess, being queer so that they can be, I guess, more inclusive and shit, that's fucking hurtful. So I like to keep it separate for me. And if you're happy doing your art, you can always find money somewhere else. That will keep you going. Don't rely on art to be your source of income, because there's so many people out here trying to use you. that's me anyway. Just live your life, be happy, find your happiness through whatever source, if it's dance or if it's visual arts, do it. But don't rely on money because it's a struggle.
Thanks, Keith. Yeah.
I would also agree totally that just do it. I also lecture and mentor, and one of the things I sound like a broken record about is just keep going, more. Like in the visual diary, just keep drawing. The worst thing is a blank page, or an empty visual diary, an empty closet, an empty makeup kit. I don't know, that's right. But just do. Like it's in the doing that you'll actually figure it out and make more. So I would totally agree. And also, I also have friends that I work with, and I hate their art. Absolutely cannot stand it. But they are beautiful people. They are awesome collaborators. We get on like a house on fire, and that's totally fine. You can separate the art from the person. So I would agree with both of those statements.
What are their names? So we might, thank you everyone for sharing. We might throw it over to the audience for a couple of questions. I'm sure there are some. We do have a roving mic if anyone is able, maybe Lacey's able to run around for a moment.
I heard my cue.
Yes, you were ready in those boots. Does anyone have any questions? Hands up if so. Oh, go. We've got a few.
Thank you. I would like to know how everyone feels about the recent, I guess, commodification or like huge surge in representation that the queer community has been experiencing lately. Like, do you think it adds to your creative practice by seeing all these like queer TV shows like Pose or RuPaul's Drag Race, or do you think it kind of like waters down less popularized medias, if that makes sense?
Anyone want to tackle that one?
I started drag because I watched RuPaul's Drag Race, which is currently not a thing that I'm like proud of saying, but also like that's just the first like full-on media of like people celebrating drag and this queer art, like a queer art form, like a purely queer art form on TV that was being celebrated. And I was like, dang, I've been like drawing white eyeliner on the top of my eyebrows for like maybe a few months, and I'm like, yes, this is what I want to be doing. Like, so it like helped me start, but also I really just not like, I'm so glad that now I've actually gone out into the Melbourne drag scene and then the queer art scene and seen a lot more that isn't like pageant drag and isn't like RuPaul's Drag Race drag and isn't the drag that's on there, and I've seen a lot more local drag and a lot more drag that makes more sense to where I am. So it's there. I can't really like hate that it's there. Like, well, I can and I do, but I can't do anything about that. So I can just say that it's like cool, queer representation, but like don't support a transphobe. That's all I can say about that one.
For me, I think I have mixed feelings when it comes to that. Especially about RuPaul's Drag Race. Like it's really amazing that there's representation, even with like trans people and all the queers on Drag Race, but I feel like it does water down the culture and teaches a lot of people about ballroom, like nothing. It gives them nothing. It's a good starting point to get into the queer scene, but I feel like that doesn't represent us fully. Drag Race, I don't know if I want to say this. It appropriates a lot of ballroom culture, and to me that's not right. Like that's not right, and it's becoming Eurocentric rather than pure ballroom culture. That's why I appreciate shows like Pose. Pose was directed by David Murphy, a white man, Ryan Murphy. Oh, David Murphy's a friend. Never mind. Ryan Murphy, but that's just his name on the show. People who wrote that and pretty much designed how it's gonna go were trans people of color and people from the scene. So that's what's really, really empowering now we have that platform. Now we have a voice on a show. Because if you watch Pose, everything is accurate down to the T. Like the events that happen in pose happen in real life if you really know your history. You know what I mean? So it's a really good representation in that sense, but not in Drag Race. It's a cute show. Like, don't want me to laugh, like, oh, it's cute. Nice looks. But can you walk? I don't know. I don't know.
Were there any other main points before another question?
And isn't Paris is Burning being re-released?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's literally everywhere. It's on YouTube.
Also in cinema.
Oh, we should have a screening. Come on, Harrison Hyenas, we should do that.
I think just going off what Kiki was saying, I think I can't really speak specifically to like drag or the impact that it's had on drag performers, but I can I think like that question's really interesting because there's always, I feel like during periods of significant like social change, there's an awkward time when it's like things are starting to get recognized on a bigger scale, and that's what we want, like representation and that kind of thing in like underrepresented communities, and minorities are starting to, you know, like shows are out for them and like content exists or like more mainstream. But the flip side of it is that I think we're at a time when it's not necessarily going to be the most accurate or like the highest quality, and like no kind of corporate or like mainstream machine that generates or that like shows queerness is going to be accurate as like interacting with people within the community. And that's like even things like this, it's like you get a much more realistic picture of queer people and not just a caricature of queerness. And so like for me, like I can value it on one level because I think it's a sign of the times, and I appreciate it for that, because at least people are having these discussions openly and creating these platforms and shows. But I don't look to it for accuracy. I look to the people around me, the relationships that I have, people like you guys, like you know, for a mirror of myself, not those shows. So I think take them for what they are, take them with a pinch of salt, and they could be appreciated as a good thing, but they're not the be all and end all. Yeah.
We are so blessed. We're going to throw it back to the audience if that's okay, just to try to squeeze in another question. Any other questions? Yeah, there's one at the back. And then...
Yeah, hi guys, how you doing? My name's David. I've had a queer production company for several years in Melbourne. I work in Europe and in Melbourne. I've just come back from the Cannes Film Festival. I've shot a documentary looking at queer diversity in cinema and sort of seeing what's going on in the EU and North America around a lot of those things you're talking about. And I think it's just so interesting where we sit at the moment, and the wonderful point you brought up about capitalism and how we actually now exist in it. On the one hand, we're seeing culture up for sale and a diluted version of it, and on the other hand, we're actually squeezed as artists, and we can't survive in creating our own cultural expression. And that's the kind of two tangents. That's the sort of, I think, the dilemma that we sit in at the moment, which you guys have so beautifully articulated tonight. But yeah, what's the way out of that? Because the similar conversations are happening everywhere in the world at the moment. And I think it's a community thing, that you have to have a community response, we have to have a hybrid and more radical, we have to have almost our own kind of queer arts policy and how we kind of invent a way out of these two crushing forces within neoliberalism.
Well, it looks like Matto's ready to go.
This is a passion of mine because, I agree, we're stuck inside of it. Girl, got to pay rent, right? Like, we have to sell out a part of our creative practice because that's our tool to make money. We need to straight up eat the rich. Like, we need to burn down Parliament House and start again. That is just my extremist view. But I also agree that we need to create... Sorry?
Not an invitation to go and burn down.
No. I don't.
Like, there'll be an event page as well.
Yeah. Follow me on Instagram. But I agree, we do need to create more of a community because I photograph events, and I photographed an event the other morning which had the director of the Australia Arts Council, who kind of decides where funds are going from the top, and from someone that's kind of still emerging and still like a shit kicker down at the bottom, struggling, you know, in many different ways to get by, hearing this person kind of talk about their structure, he was so removed from what artists actually do and what we actually go through. It was someone that's been in a corporate job for so long that they were delusional about the art. So I think we just need to straight up eat the rich at this point.
Okay, eat the rich. There's your response. Thank you. Let's try to squeeze in one final question. There was a hand up in the second row. We might get to.
I think they were.
Oh, sorry. Hey, this is kind of a continuation of what you've been talking about, but one thing that I often tackle inside myself is feeling guilty for the ambitions of making it out of Australia, or like having an international career, or working the system to the way that I want it to work. You know, trying to like be like the virus from inside or whatever, and trying to like turn it up from the inside. And I just wanted to see what your opinions are on, do you think that's valid for us? Do you think that's something that that is okay to desire? And do you think it's achievable?
Sorry, I'll take this one.
There's something about that too, but
Cool. I guess like the whole getting out of like having an international reputation is that kind of what you're asking about? Like
Basically, yeah.
Like I guess that idea and that concept comes from just like the westernization and like having to like be an individual, and like as we're talking about like having a community and like talking about exchanges and having these exchanges, cultural queer exchanges that we're having, like it would need to be like we need to start thinking like locally, and then that's how we can like get like kind of start to like even start consuming the rich, is so that we can like make them like get out of their high apartments and like make our own community, make our own like exchanges, so that they can like, you know, get nice and juicy and tender, we can eat them. So I guess like having this like international dreams, like, you know, I'm sure many of us have had those dreams before. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking tour Australia, I'm gonna tour the world doing drag, da da da. But like, I guess at the core of that is like, where is that money gonna go, and are you gonna bring that back to like your local community? Are you gonna bring that back here to home, to where you grew up, to your communities that you care about? And if you're doing that internationally, great, that's perfect, you know. But like, questions, things to think about.
yeah, I feel like we do need to work the system to have that dream be achievable here, because I feel like having that dream outside of the country is very unachievable for a lot of people, especially people that are in marginalized communities, and it just makes you dream of a Caucasian life, a Caucasian life, rather than having this like dream be achieved here. I feel like you're already putting a standard here that you can't make here at all. You know what I mean? So I feel like as a community, we need to create that scene for us. That's why I really like that we have this panel, we have so many queer things happening here, but I feel like it's better to dream bigger for Australia and the community, rather than, oh my god, I want to be in America and be this pop star. Yeah, next Taylor Swift. You know what I mean? Like everyone looks up to these Western people for inspiration, and they want to be like them, but I feel like be yourself here. People in your community will support you if you just be yourself. So that's my 2 cents.
I think like just going off, what Stone and Keegan were saying, like, there's a lot of value to that too. Like, because I've been to a few countries, and I think there is something to be said for using the infrastructure that is around you and building from there. Because I think America is, you know, there's always going to be tons of opportunities in America and in the UK and all over the world, but we're kind of good, it's a good position to be, to kind of have an element of like, we're a very diverse community and we're a growing community, but we're also, it's not oversaturated. Because everyone just like, oh, I'm gonna drop everything, go to LA. It's like in LA, you'll just be another whatever. And so it's like take what you can from those like international platforms and build something here. And also to what Anthony, the homie, was saying, I think like I totally get that sense of guilt, because it's like that sense of guilt that comes from sometimes, am I kind of by exploiting a system that's like setting out to kind of suppress me, am I contributing to that same system? And you feel guilty because it's like, I can draw the parallel of being a person of color, obviously, and it's like, there's so many times when it's like, oh, you know, like, I'll probably get this job because I'm like the token black girl, but it's like, oh, it's like good for me, I got the job, but it's also like, oh, am I okay with being that, like, kind of role? And I think, well, that comes down to, obviously, whatever your personal morals are, but I think when we exist in a space that is not designed for us, and we can all relate to that being queer, I think get it where you can get it, build from where you can, and as long as we're supporting each other and providing that community, then it's within our rights to kind of fight against this system that's like not designed for us. Like, we don't have to adhere to it. So yeah, like shit, I'll be the token black girl. It's like, you're paying me. You know what I mean? And in the meantime, I've got people that recognize me in my entirety, and I don't look to you for that. If that makes sense. Yeah. That's my
Also, if you look within Ballroom didn't start on TV or anywhere else. They made it themselves. It really matters about community and you supporting each other, because without your community, where would you go? You know what I mean? Like, Ballroom has been around for so long, and they just relied on themselves. They created their own scene, they created their own world out of necessity because they needed that. And I feel like as an artist, it's the same kind of value. Like, you really need that outlet and that space for you to express yourself. And the best place to have it is within your community. You need to really find your people and ask them to help you out.
Thank you.
Can I just really quickly add on to that? I'll say that the reason why you feel like you need to leave Australia to feel successful or to get out of here is because Australia has a number of horrible cultural systems in place, that, such as tall poppy syndrome. There's a whole range of reasons why you want to get out of here, and that's totally valid. But I would also agree that that change needs to come from within. So you need to kind of contribute back into the community, whether that's visual art, whether that's drag, whether that's ballroom, whether that's whatever, and actually make the positive changes that you're not seeing. You need to be that role model that you didn't have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Period.
Thanks, Jesse. I think that's like a really nice sort of empowering place to sort of finish for tonight, and in the name of time, because we've reached our full hour. First and foremost, I just want to thank all four of our incredible panelists tonight. Can we please give them a big round of applause? Thank you. We do have gifts in the way in a moment, but before we kind of separate, in a moment we'll have some music back on, and it'll be really nice for you to get to know each other, so please mingle and whatnot. I want to name just like a couple of takeaways that I jotted down in the middle of this. A big key point was just get started. So if you are one of those people, and I'm sure there are many in the room, you've been thinking about an idea for ages, you think you're not good enough, or you think the time isn't right, or you're saving for the perfect moment, just get started. Find people you enjoy working with, good people around you who can support you, even if you fucking hate their artwork.
We'll be calling on that.
Diversify your practice. So you may have like a great creative practice, but look for different ways to diversify it if you want to. Don't automatically monetize your creative practice. Maybe you don't need to monetize it. Fight capitalism if you can afford to. Community support. So maybe we need to look for more opportunities to support one another, support other people in different creative industries. Looking for structural support where possible. So if you see a grant opportunity, for example, send it to your mate who might need it. And that kind of final point around like, yes, if you want to go pursue a career elsewhere, do so, but you can also be yourself here. I thought that was a really beautiful way to finish. So thank you again. We have some gifts somewhere for you. I hope no one has nut allergies.